right, so let me first create a layer of text and let's see what we can actually do with our text tool and all its settings. So to add a text, I can either go over to my toolbar and click on T at the top here, or press T on my keyboard and just find any place to type and just type out my text here. And the second way to do it would be to add a text box. So I'm clicking T one more time on my keyboard and I'm drawing a text box on the canvas. And the second way is really handy when you need to add your text into a set container. Let's say copy and paste your text from someone else. So maybe grab your text outside of Figma from your wireframes and paste it inside. So let me do it right now. Okay, so I found some text. I'm clicking on my text box and I'm typing in Command+V. And that's my new text added into the bounding box here. Okay, so now that we have our two different text layers, let's see what text settings we can change. So to style our text, you can use the text properties panel on the right side of your interface. So when you have your text layer selected, this option will appear to let you style your text. And here under this text segment, you'll see various settings such as font families, font sizes, font weight, font height, line spacing, paragraph spacing, and text box settings, some alignment settings, and some more alignment settings, and we'll go over that all one by one. So under our text section, you'll see that the first input field is the name of the font family you're currently using. And in my case, that's General Sans variable. You can click on this drop-down to look for the font that you want to use, or you can just click here and then type in the font that you want to switch to. And it's of course really important to consider the readability and legibility of all the fonts for your, for design when choosing a font family. And if you're a beginner, it's best to stick to fonts that are already industry proven and are really, they have really good legibility across all different font sizes. So mainly try to use sans serif fonts that don't have any decorative stems at the end of these letter ends. So go for simple fonts like Inter, like SF Pro if you're on a Mac, Satoshi or General Sans are all also good examples. And they're one of the best beginner-friendly fonts with plenty of styles to choose from and perfect legibility on all font sizes. So speaking about legibility, let's go to our next setting and change the size of our text. You can either nudge it up by using your keyboard arrows here or by using Shift and your arrows to jump between the nudge value that you've selected, which in our case is 8. You can also type in your value manually and hit enter. So next up, we have the line height. And line height refers to the space between different lines of text. And so maybe move on to this one because it will be easier to visualize this. And this setting can help improve readability by making it easier for our eyes to read. Like this is really hard to read. And this is much easier. So it's easier for our eyes to move from one line to the other. And there are no strict rules for line height, as it really depends on the font size, the font family, and your design goals. But as a general rule, you can use a line height that is around 1.3 to 1.6, the size of the font for body text, and around 1.2 to 1.5 times the size of the font for your headings. And I tend to go for larger line heights as I personally like to use more space in my designs to let my designs breathe a little. So once I change my font size here, the line height will also change if it's set to auto. And in some examples, you'll see that if you're using sizes that are uneven, you might want to actually change it to 24 for more symmetrical design that's easier to divide. And if you were using the rules that I told you about, then let's say you wanted to use the 1.4 size, so that would give you this value here, and then you would round it up to the nearest higher or lower value depending on what you have here. So this is how this paragraph text changes once I adjust the size of the line height. And too much of a space will make it hard to read, as the same way as leaving not enough space will also make it hard on your eyes to read. Now, paragraph spacing, on the other hand, which is this setting right here, refers to the space between paragraphs. So if I increase this value here, the spacing between my paragraph will increase. Now I set it at slightly larger than the font size. So let's say if I'm using 17 for my font size, I would set the spacing between my paragraph to, let's say, 20 or 22, depending on how I want my text to look like. And it also depends on the typeface I'm using, because all typefaces have different values by default. So if I were to use Satoshi, I might want to use a different value than I was using, let's say, Enter. Now, let's move on to the letter spacing. So let me quickly maybe copy our text from here and change it to a smaller value here. 13 is like the smallest value for text that you'll probably work with. Going lower than that will reduce your readability and make it hard for some of the visitors to read your text. So don't go lower than that. And that's also a value suggested by Google. So this value here, the letter spacing, is also known as tracking, and it refers to the amount of space between individual letters of a text. And increasing this value can make your text more legible and easier to read, especially with small sizes of text like we have right here, or when using a font family that with a lot of detail or decoration, with, for example, if we're using the serif fonts. And decreasing the spacing here will make it, much harder to read, and this might make sense when you're using like really, big sizes, and then this could make your text in some cases, easier to read, and in some cases much harder. So let's go back to our 13 size, and this is way too big. So let's leave it like that. And this type of text is used mainly for the captions, and in combination with the all caps settings. And I will open the type settings right now, and just quickly go over to the basics, and we'll go over all of them in just a second. But I just want to show how by styling this text, we could make it much easier to read than, let's say, we were using just the regular values here. So it all depends on the context, but if you want to create a nice caption, this would be a much better way than just use, a regular style here. So in general, it's really important to ensure that the letter spacing is consistent and appropriate across all your various font styles. And I personally tend to go for values like, 1 to 15 pixels, or if I'm using percentages, because you can also use percentages, then I might start nudging the value until I achieve a result I want to, achieve. And let's now go over to our text box here and then see what these settings mean. So right now, my text is set to fixed size, which means that I'm able to manipulate the size of my text box. And you will see that, it's doing nothing for my text inside of this box. But if I change it to auto height, it will automatically try to fit all my text into the bounding box. So it will increase the bounding box to make space for all the lines of text that I have. And if I change it to auto width, it will try to put all of my text into one line. So let's undo this action. And all these settings have their own uses, but just remember that whenever you resize your text, let's say from the fixed size, it will jump to auto width, it will jump to auto height, and if you resize it in this direction, it will jump onto the fixed size. You can also align your text to the center, to right, to left, and you can align your text to middle, to bottom, or to top, and it all depends on the bounding box that you have set for your text. And you might want to manipulate the size of this just so it's more symmetrical and it's easier to, find, let's say, values to work with on a 8-pixel grid, for example. Finally, Figma also offers some advanced settings to style your text, and you can access them from the type settings here by clicking on these 3 dots. And what these will do, you see here, there's a new resizing option, which will, you'll find some value, let's say, when you want to truncate your text. So let's say you choose a bounding box like this, and you're duplicating your elements into, let's say, cards, and you want your text to automatically cut off at this point, then you can, paste your text and then use the truncate text option to automatically cut it off at some point. Okay, you can also use the justified text, but in web design, mobile design, we will pretty much never use it because all browsers read text differently, and this would create like a huge mess on our designs. You can change your paragraph style to bulleted list, to numbered list, or you can just keep it at no list, and you can change the uppercase, lowercase, title case, or you can just leave it as type. These settings I rarely use. I might sometimes use the subscript or the superscript, but I tend to go with normal most of the time. And then if your font supports it, you can also change your weight by using the variable values. So jumping between these breakpoints, you can access value that you want to use. So for example, I want to use 550 or like 350, and I find it like the perfect size that I want. You can also slant your text, but if your font has this support, you can change it to italic and then achieve pretty much the same result. And lastly, you can underline your text or strike through your text. So these, for example, could be a button for your text, and then you can change its fill to your brand color, for example. So let's say this could be your heading. This could be your main heading, headline main, maybe main heading. This could be your paragraph text, like that, spaced in maybe 16, and this could be your caption text, also at 16, maybe 24, and then this could be spaced in 40 pixels out. And of course, you can manipulate the opacity of your text, but I wouldn't use it. I would rather just go for a grayed out style of text instead. Right. What else? So that's about it for all the basic features of the typography tool in Figma. And we'll practice with this while building our landing page design. And like with everything, practice makes perfect. So make sure that you practice using this tool a lot. And by analyzing other designs and following what I'm doing here, you'll quickly develop an eye for good design, and you'll be able to design visually appealing and legible texts in your own designs. And I'm also going to share some really nice secrets while we're building our landing page. So if you feel like it, you can always go to your homework and then start from the first lesson. So to style the text like you see on your left, apply these settings to create your app designs, and then you can center align the text layers and just have a play around with different type settings, and then seeing how they would affect your designs here. So maybe you would want to choose a different line height, you would want to choose a different leading tracking, you would want to increase the size. So have a play around. You can watch the solution at the end if you need to, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Good luck.